Welcome everyone. Today we're going to be looking at calculating percentage change. Please have a read of the learning intentions for this lesson because it will be able to help you figure out whether you've understood everything that you need to know. We're going to be looking at profit and loss, which really follows on nicely from the work we've been doing in percentages. And you probably have a really good understanding of profit and loss. You know, for example, if I were to buy pencils for $1 each and I were to sell them for $3 each, that the profit would be $2. If I wasn't a very good salesman and I were to sell them for 20 cents each, remember I bought them for $1 each, my loss would be 80 cents per pencil. So generally you want to sell things for more than you bought them for to have a successful business. We can actually calculate some percentages using those values, but before we do that, let's make sure we've defined all the terms that we need to know. So first off, we need to talk about two things: selling price and cost price. Selling price, you can imagine that being the price tag. That's how much the consumer needs to pay. So just make a note of that in your notes. Price tag, or the consumer pays this. The cost price is how much it cost the seller. So in the example that I had before, my cost price would have been $1. You probably have a really good understanding of profit and loss. But using these two terms, selling price and cost price, there's a formula that we can use to be able to find the value of the profit and the loss as a positive number each time. But I'll talk more about that in a moment. So our profit is going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about. I'm going to label the things that we do for profit in green because we want profits, and green reminds me of a green stop in a traffic light. I nearly said stoplight. Okay, so profit is selling price minus cost price. So let's note that down. Minus cost price. Whereas a loss, if we wanted, we could use selling price minus cost price for our loss. We would just get a negative number here, but if you wanted it as a positive number, you could just flip this around. So cost price minus selling price. And we put it in red because that is going to be a loss. If it cost me $1 for my pencils and I was selling them for 20 cents, then 1 minus 20 cents, $1 minus 20 cents would be 80 cents. Now, we're going to be looking at percentage profit and percentage loss. But to be able to do that, we need to think about how we find percentage change generally. Any kind of percentage change is going to follow this formula. It's going to be whatever the change was over the original. So that could be an original amount of money or an original number of pencils that I had or something like that. And because we've got a fraction and we want to make it into a percentage, we're going to multiply by 100. You can imagine that as 100 over 1. And you need to make sure you add in that percentage sign at the end. Let's apply that to profit and loss now. So to find percentage profit, our change is going to be the profit that we make. The original cost, or the original thing we're talking about, is going to be the cost price. And we're going to times that by 100, and you can put over 1 and percent if you like, if you think you're going to forget the percentage sign. Percentage loss is going to be the same thing, but instead of profit, we're going to have, I just wrote lost. Loss over cost price times 100 over 1, and then add that percentage sign in. So, again, we just said before, you only need to really remember one formula. It's the change over the original number times 100 over 1 and add the percentage sign. So that change either becomes the profit or the loss, and the original price is always the cost price. How much did the seller have to pay originally to get the object that they're selling, the stock? And then make it into a percentage, just like we do for all fractions. To go from a fraction to a percentage, we multiply by 100 over 1. In this example here, we're asked to find the percentage profit on an item bought for $40 and sold for $50. Because we bought it for less than what we sold it, it's going to be a profit. And that profit is going to be 50 minus 40, which will be $10. To find the percentage profit, let's first write out our equation for percentage profit. That was profit divided by cost price times 100%. Like I talked about in a previous lesson, if you'd like to put that percent sign at the bottom, the last step of your calculation, that is fine with me. But if you're the type of person who thinks they'll forget it, you can include it during your calculation. Let's identify the values that we have in our information here. If we bought it for $50, that's the cost price to the seller. And if we sold it for $50, well, that's going to be the sale price, which is also selling price. I don't mind if you write sale or selling. So we used the cost and the sale price to figure out the profit of $10. We've written out our equation here, and now we're going to substitute into our equation. Our profit was $10. Our cost price was this $40 here, and we're going to multiply it by 100 over 1. I like to put my percentage sign at the end of the calculation, but you're welcome to put it here if you like. We're going to start bow tying what we've got here, so we can divide the top and bottom of this first fraction by 10. So that effectively cancels off these two zeros. I know 4 goes into 4 once, and it goes into 125 times. So what do I have left? On my numerator, I have 1 times 25, and on my denominator, I have 1 times 1. So with the 1 times 25, we get 25 over 1, which is just 25. And don't forget to add in that percentage sign. Really, really important there. So we made a 25% profit. That was our percentage profit in this question. Now we want to find the percentage loss on an item bought for $100 and sold for $80. So if it was bought for $100, that is the cost price. And if it was sold for $80, that is the sale or selling price. To find the percentage loss, it's going to be the change divided by the original times 100 over 1%. In this example here, that's going to be the loss over the cost, which is our original price, times 100 over 1%. You can just imagine that as times 100 and add the over 1 and percent at the end as well. What is the loss though? The loss, well, if we bought it for 100 and we sold it for 80, we've got a loss of $20 here. That's not ideal. Let's put our loss in of 20. Let's keep the units out of the question. And we bought it for 100, so that was our cost price, times 100 over 1. This one's really nice because we can just cancel off the hundreds, and we're just going to have 20%. Make sure you put your equal signs underneath, 20%. I would like you to pause the video now, and I want you to have a go at this table and the table underneath. And after you've paused it, hit play again, and I will show you the answers. You should have enough room to show working out inside of these boxes if you're careful and, write a little bit small. Okay, the answers for the first table are up here. Notice that I had some examples where you have a choice. You can either present this as a decimal or a mixed number percentage. So a decimal percentage, mixed number percentage. I prefer that. This is the only circumstance that I think it looks nicer than an improper fraction. Let's look at the next table. And here are the answers to the second table. Notice in the first example with the car, when we had a loss of $1,000 and a cost of $3,000, we could have written that again as 33.3 recurring percent or 33 1/3%.